Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. So today I want to talk about a new movie being produced by Netflix. It's called Steps, and it's going to be a reimagining of Cinderella. It's been a common trend to take a story but retell it from the villain's perspective, making them more misunderstood or even good instead of evil. Things like Wicked, for example, which I recently talked about. There's also Cruella and Maleficent from Disney. So now Netflix is throwing their hat in the ring by telling the Cinderella story, but from the perspective of the wicked stepsisters, who are now misunderstood instead of wicked. They've given more depth to the stepsisters in other media, including Disney. Like, for example, in Cinderella's sequel movies, Cinderella 2 and 3, they have Anastasia in particular become a much more sympathetic character. Drizella, on the other hand, is still pretty nasty, but Anastasia and Cinderella are able to reconcile. They didn't try to excuse Anastasia's bad behavior or invalidate Cinderella's experiences as an abuse victim, but they had Anastasia grow past her faults, where she recognizes that she felt inadequate because she didn't feel like she was as pretty as Cinderella. I wouldn't be against giving Drizella character development if they ever get the chance to. Oftentimes with these villain retellings, they tend to not really know what to do with the original heroes. Like, again, I just talked about this with Wicked, where Dorothy was very reduced to the point where you don't even see her face, which is true in the stage production as well. But also she's just being pushed around by the narrative and she's not really aware even of fully what's going on. She's just being manipulated by everyone. And it kind of just felt like she was there because of the Wizard of Oz connection. I'll put a link to that video if you're interested in checking it out. But then there's other movies like Cruella, for example, where Roger and Anita are again just kind of there, and Roger randomly writes the song Cruella de Vil where he calls her evil and scary, but he doesn't really have any reason to, at least within the context of that movie itself. He literally just starts singing it at the end of the movie, kind of randomly, and it feels like it's just here because it's a retelling of 101 Dalmatians. And I feel like the messaging might be more effective if they just made their own original story instead of trying to retell an already existing one, in my opinion. But the thing is, they're basically using the nostalgia for the original property as marketing, pretty much for the name recognition. And again, I think that it can be interesting to have retellings. I did something similar in my own comic. There are two characters who are based off of Romeo and Juliet. They're not the protagonists, and this isn't a retelling per se, just that basically in the original story, the lovers die, but I wanted to play around with that and basically ask, what if the family died and the lovers survived? So that's their whole backstory. So I think there's a lot of potential with retellings. It just feels like these villain ones are becoming cliched. A lot of them fall into the same tropes. Plus, it's a little weird to try to take, abusers and villains and murderers and so on and so forth and make them more sympathetic, in my opinion. But I guess we'll see what Steps has to offer. So let's get into this article. It starts off by saying a new Cinderella story is coming to Netflix in 2026, titled Steps, following Cinderella's famously mean stepsisters. Steps was first announced in 2021, but this version, with comedians Ricky Lindholm and Kate Micucci attached, never moved forward. However, after the massive success of the Golden Globe-nominated K-pop Demon Hunters, Netflix has re-announced a new animated fantasy. So that's kind of an interesting detail. I wonder why, because of K-pop Demon Hunters, they decided to go with a Cinderella retelling, considering the fact that K-pop Demon Hunters was an original property, which a lot of people have wanted to see more of. I guess I would expect more original fantasies instead of just retelling an already beloved story. But let's move on. Today, Netflix officially revealed the stars and the log line for Steps, alongside the first look image. Steps will be an animated revisionist fairy tale with Ali Wong and Stephanie Su voicing the two leads, directed by John Ripa from Raya and the Last Dragon, and Alice Tsu making her feature directorial debut. With a 2026 release window, the movie's plot is described as follows. Think you know Cinderella's evil stepsisters? Think again. When misunderstood Lilith, Wong, is blamed for hijacking the royal ball with a stolen magic wand, she accidentally turns her sister Margot, Sue, into a frog and leaves the kingdom in the hands of a prince-obsessed mean girl. Now Lilith must team up with Cinderella and a surprisingly dreamy troll, okay, to save the kingdom, repair the fractured fairy tale, and prove that even so-called villains deserve a shot at happily ever after. So just my personal thoughts or reaction to this synopsis, it sounds a little bit all over the place, and kind of like this probably could have just been its own thing. It seems like they're taking aspects from other fairy tales too, like the frog thing, for example, and I guess they're replacing the evil stepsisters with this mean girl here. But I think it's interesting that the stepsisters are teaming up with Cinderella. Hopefully it'll be different than just, oh, the stepsisters were good all along and Cinderella's just kind of there because she has to be. This is also talking about a specific event, so I wonder how they'll show the stepsisters treating Cinderella as they're growing up too. And it might be interesting to see that perspective because they were also kids and, you know, maybe they didn't handle things properly, but it probably isn't too late to learn how to treat people better. But again, I think this could have just been its own thing. The article continues by saying, additionally, Steps is produced by Amy Poehler, Jane Hartwell, and Kim Lessing. Netflix has had a great success with animated movies this past year, with K-pop Demon Hunters becoming an exceptional cultural phenomenon, while In Your Dreams also became a well-reviewed hit. Both are showing up among this year's awards season's nominations. Steps, meanwhile, already has the appeal of a widely known story and two beloved stars. So yeah, that's what I was saying with the whole villain retellings. They're using nostalgia bait and name recognition to market the film. Sue broke onto the scene in the last few years with her supporting role in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, but established herself as an upcoming A-lister with her Oscar-nominated performance in Best Picture winner Everything Everywhere All at Once. Yeah, so pretty classic name recognition, both when it comes to the property and also the stars. The article finishes off by saying revisionist fairy tales aren't exactly breaking ground nowadays. That's very true. So Steps will have to be uniquely funny and original to stand out, but Cinderella hasn't had a high-profile reimagining in a while. 2015's Cinderella actually stands out as one of Disney's best live-action remakes, and with such a great pairing as the leads, Steps could be a welcome Netflix comedy next year. I think it's interesting that they're going a comedic route, and yeah, I think that the Disney version is pretty much considered the definitive Cinderella when it comes to the cultural zeitgeist. I liked Ever After too, though, but still, I think that people are starting to recognize that fairy tale retellings from the villain's perspective is a bit tropey nowadays, and they're going to have to stand out if they want to not fall to the wayside. So that's my thoughts on Steps. I think that it could have potential, but I also think that it could just be another original story instead of trying to piggyback off of the well-known classic fairy tale. But that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Do you think Steps sounds interesting? Do you think it should be an original story? Do you like these villain retellings? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. So with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everyone. I really appreciate it. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to our members: Tyrant Carnivore, Shiny Orc Boy, Depth Charge 78, Samaru 163, Gabby Hime, Jury Tact, Equestron, Norman Sweet Cream, Way Beyond Coincidence, Hunter Rose, 80s Nostalgia Guy, Jay Draws, Meowsers, Skyra, Idle Hands Dibbit, Isaac Martinez, Garcia XV Legend, Tobias Weller, Bobber Main FX, Mac B909, Dakari the Professor, Omni Fair, Cavalcoj, Strider Exile Channel, Phil C, Killer Bomb, Slawa Saporigas, It's the Frankster, Crimson Phantom, Jin the Goblin, Daunter XYZ, Brian B161, Papa Hud 69, Gengar King Vivo, G Reezer, Snoopy Von Snoops, Entwined Boot 301, Stutania, Spencer Schmidt, ICU Forever, and Chaos Jumper. Thank you all so much for the support, and if you would like to become a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. We also have Buy Me Coffee if you want to support us that way. And if you enjoyed the video, you can leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and that part's free. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.